Hey, girlfriends, welcome to another episode of Girlfriends and Goals. We're your hosts, Miosha.
And Samaria.
This podcast is a space where we'll talk about friendships, life goals, a little bit of pop culture, and all things womanhood.
On today's episode, we're talking about the classic Black movies that we've all seen and that we all love. We're going to break down why we feel like they're low key or high key problematic in some cases. So, we definitely have a good episode in store. But first, if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, please make sure that you leave us a 5-star rating and write a review. And if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. Okay, so we're just gonna jump right into the movies and then do our segment at the end. I think we should start with Love and Basketball because to me, that is like everybody's favorite movie. I feel like for a good 10 years, if you ask
Mm-hmm.
somebody, what's your favorite movie? Love and Basketball was either their answer or their runner up. And so I want to start with that one just to talk about what things we love about the movie, why we think it's a classic, and then we can get into the problematic bits.
Yeah, I think we love it. Okay, I don't know if I should say we, but I'm generalizing. I think the culture loves it because it's a classic boy meets girl. They're young, they grow up together, high school sweetheart-ish type of love. And even though they have a lot of hurdles, they end up working out in the end. And so
Yeah.
I think there's this element of one, you don't see that much with our generation of people dating from that young of an age and actually working out. So it seems almost out of reach, but it's so sweet when you see it. I'm grateful I have some people in my life who are like high school sweethearts, and it is just it looks good, it feels good, especially when it's healthy love.
Okay. Okay.
But
Okay.
yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why we really feel connected to this movie. I'll start with one of the scenes that's, I guess, one of my tops from the movie is the dance scene where y'all, I'm sorry. I'm going to intermix the actual characters' names with their real names. I
Yeah.
apologize, but Gabrielle Union's character was just doing the most at the dance to keep Q's attention.
Yeah.
She was pulling out all the stops, and it did not matter. He could not keep his attention off of Monica. So, yeah, that's one of my top scenes in the movies. I have others, but I'll let you say one of yours.
Okay, so I think the reason why people love this movie is because it allows for error. And I think a lot of times when there are mistakes along the way, we think, okay, this relationship shouldn't be something that lasts. At least if there are a lot of errors and like big mistakes during the dating process. I know for me, that would be a sign that maybe this just needs to stay in the dating process and not progress. But I think a lot of people like it because it allows for the growth of characters, which would include them making mistakes and correcting them later on down the line. And so I think it's a great movie because you see that progression. You see them as kids when they're not really um, thinking about hurting the other person's feelings. They're just kind of going, going for what is it? Going for the kill, going in for the kill.
Girl, here you go with these comments. You know, I don't be knowing.
All right. So, yeah. So, when you are younger and maybe there isn't as much care with your words to
Mm-hmm.
a later stage in life where you can accept, okay, I've made this mistake and try to get past it. So, yeah. And then of course, it's a love story. It's like, they were so drawn to each other that nothing could keep them apart for all these years of not talking together. So I think that's what kind of drew younger me in to that movie. One of my favorite scenes has to be. Hmm, there's so many to pick from. Okay, so this is the scene where I think she waited to open her college acceptance letter until she was with him. So it's like after the prom, and she's
Mm-hmm.
like, she'd been scared, but he was her safe space. Like she felt like whatever the the answer was from the school, she felt comfortable with sharing that moment with him. So I think
Mm,
that was one of my favorites. And then another interesting one, I don't want to say one of my favorites, but another interesting scene was when she came back from Spain and was walking in her heels and he saw her outside. So I thought like
mm,
that was because they had known each other so long, nobody else really could have had that conversation with her except him. So yeah, those
yeah.
are a couple of my favorites.
Yeah, I want to mention one more scene too. That's one of my favorites, but it's the one where it's her and her mom in the kitchen towards the end, and they're having this heart to heart.
Yeah.
And Monica's basically like, you've been the caterer and chauffeur of the family, and her mom is just saying like, hey, like I've enjoyed having that role.
Yeah.
And then Monica goes on to express how she, felt a way about her not being at her games. And her mom is like, yeah, but you really didn't need me there. And it just showed how two people can be in the same situation and be close, but just have such a different perspective. But yeah, I love that scene. It's definitely a tearjerker moment.
No, that scene is the best because that's when her mom slaps her and she's like, "Oh no, are they cursing their mamas in Spain?" That for
Uh,
me is one of like Alfred Woodard's best delivered lines ever. It lives in my mind rent free.
yeah.
So yeah, I really like that. But another mother daughter moment that really touched me was when her mom was saying, "Oh, remember that time I said I felt like Q could have done better?" Is because like I had you in mind. Like I think you were better than the person who he was supposed to end up with at the end. So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just a classic. Like, it's such a good movie.
So we've been talking about all the good things. So tell me, what's problematic for you?
Nothing. No, just kidding. Okay. The first time someone even hinted that this movie was problematic, it was a friend of mine who I met on Instagram. And I've known her for years. We actually met in person once, but she was saying how much she hated the movie on her stories. And I responded, like, girl, this is blasphemy. What are you talking about? You don't like loving basketball. Like, she was the first person I had heard say that. But essentially, she was saying, it's giving struggle love a little bit. And like the storyline, like he broke up with her in college, which he shouldn't have done. He should have known better and he should have talked through what his feelings were. But he goes on a date with another girl when she's right there. And then he comes after and doesn't even apologize for it. And when she's like, okay, well, how can I trust you moving forward? He says, I'm not asking us to move forward. Like, that was the worst way to break up. And I think he really showed the character, really showed his immaturity in that moment. And so for her to come back and be the one groveling at the end to get his attention, talking about play me in basketball after he has a fiance and all of that, that is problematic to me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's giving a bit of desperate
Yes.
energy, even though it doesn't come across that way on screen because we clearly know that they love each other, they're into each other. So it's kind of a sneaky struggle love, and that the energy doesn't provide that it's desperate just because of the chemistry. And we know that he does like her and care for her.
Mhm.
But yeah, I could definitely see the struggle love of it. Also, just the way he broke up with her. So there is a way for him to have broken up with her without bringing that new girl to his place in
Correct.
front of her. Like, is this a threesome date? What is this?
Talk
He
about
really
it took a
tried it.
cheap date to get you to pay attention. Okay, I'm gonna need you to use your words, sir.
Yeah. So for me, one of the pieces that I found a little bit problematic, and I know some people may not agree with me, but it's the whole storyline between Q's parents and
Mm,
how the dad was kind of propped up and presented in a certain way his entire life. And the mom and the dad have been struggling, clearly having these issues. The mom had been feeling away. And so I think what's problematic about that is it's there. I understand that there's a fine line between, okay, you don't want to show your children too much, but as your child is gearing up for adulthood, I do think that it's important for us to keep in mind like how we're presenting our relationship and ourselves to our parents almost as perfect. And I feel like that was a bit what was going on there, where his dad presented himself as one way, his mom was shielding him, I think, from a lot of the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the way that he took the information about the dad cheating and the side baby
Yeah.
was even bigger probably than what it needed to be. And it led to him being estranged from his dad for like 5 years because of the way the dad was so propped up. And
Yeah.
so I don't know, for me, that was a bit problematic because I think that we should, to a certain extent, as our kids are gearing up for adulthood, be more transparent about, you know, kind of where things are in our marriages, who
Yeah.
we are as people. But I understand it's a fine line because they are still young. So you have to find that way of effectively communicating that in a way that's like emotionally appropriate for where they're at.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. So he had his dad on a pedestal almost the entire movie, and his mom kind of allowed it to the point
Mm-hmm.
where even when his dad lied to him, he didn't even want to believe the lie.
Yeah, he was shook. And even
Yeah.
he said to the mom, like, well, it ain't no thing. You don't believe it, do you?
Yeah.
The
Like,
scene when they were at
boy,
the pool.
right. She's like, boy, here go these pictures. Okay. Yes, I believe it. And so I think him and how he responded to that definitely impacted, of course, what he was requiring from Monica. Because it's like, okay, I understand you have this thing going on. I'm going to sit out here as long as I can with you. I'm going to be there for you as much as I can. But she also needed support in that moment. And so there was like this conflict of her trying to do what was right for their relationship, but also her needing to do what was right for her. And I don't, do you think she picked right by like leaving that night and going to her dorm so that she wouldn't get in trouble instead of staying with him? What do you think?
Yes,
Okay.
because this was outside of her control.
Yeah.
And also, a piece of the storyline is that he's already propped up to be like this high round pick. I'm not sure
Yes.
how they describe it, but she came in more entry level,
Yeah.
and is like literally fighting her way to have the starting position. And he's already there.
Yes.
So they weren't even coming in at the same station. So, of course, she chose right.
Yeah, especially as a like an 18-year-old college freshman, like you don't put your dreams to the side for a partner. Because then when they go and take a girl out on a cheap date, you're gonna be standing there looking stuck. So I think it was good. And I think at the very end, just another instance of them showing the progression of characters, him sitting on the sidelines while she was on the court in the WNBA, I thought was them showing his growth as a supportive partner. Like it doesn't always have to be about me being on the court and you cheering me on, but I can chill and cheer you on from the sidelines too. So I don't know. The writing to me was excellent in this film.
Yeah, and you spoke to his growth, but I think when they were younger, I think he was very comfortable with being in the position of being the better ball player or being in a
Yes.
better position. And so when she started winning and was starting, that was uncomfortable
Yeah.
for him. And so I think for her, even though it worked out in the movie, that's also a risk because how do you know going forward that this person will be okay with your success?
Very much so. And I think like in real life too, this is a big thing. So for example, a husband who's making more money than his wife, and then the roles change, and maybe his ego is a little fragile and he's not able to adapt to how things are. So even though he was a young character, I can fully see this happening in real life with older people, who are going through this like transition of, oh well, now she's making more than I am, and how does that affect my ego? So
Yeah. All right. Well, if that's all you have on love and basketball,
I think so.
let's move on to soul food.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What do I love about this movie besides the soundtrack? Because listen, that soundtrack is top tier. Like maybe Waiting to Exhale beats this as far as movie soundtracks, but it's an excellent soundtrack. So that's one of the first things that I love about it. And I love that it's centered around family issues because I think well, I was going to say it's very realistic, but some of those family issues were not realistic at all.
We'll
And
s-
so,
we'll
right.
see.
But I like that it shows family problems and them being worked out and how slow that process is and how at the end of it everybody won't be as cool as they were going in, like that's just a reality. And so I like that it shows those dynamics. And yeah, I think they
Okay.
also showed a variety of relationships. So I wanted to say they showed a very healthy relationship with Vivica Fox's character and her
Maxine.
husband.
Hmm.
Yeah, but because they started kind of not so, the way they started, I think takes away from that for me. But overall, they had a very healthy relationship. So they portrayed that. And then they portrayed not just one relationship issue, but different ones. So the thing with Nia Long's character and her husband, and then the thing with Terry and her husband. So I think, yeah, there's a variety of stuff there that we can sit down and talk about when it comes to this movie. And I think that's great. Sorry, I said a whole lot. You
No,
go.
it's fine. I don't know. I kind of feel a variety of struggle
Yeah.
relationships that they showed, but
Okay.
going back to one of the things I love about this movie is for me it's very nostalgic. Growing up in my family, Sunday dinners was a big thing. We would always go to my great grandmother's house. I mean, I can't, when she was alive, I can't think of a Sunday dinner that we didn't go. And when
Wow.
she moved on, I remember saying to my mom, like, okay, I guess you have to pick up the reins. Sunday dinner all on you, girl.
Yeah.
But yeah, so just watching that is just so nostalgic for me. The food, the vibe, and then also just, I don't know if I want to say pressure, but the importance, laid out by the elders of coming together as a family.
Yes.
It was just so relatable for me. It felt like scenes from my own family. So yeah, I really love that. And I did put down that I loved how they portrayed Maxine's relationship, even though there was some questionable behavior in the
I,
beginning.
yeah.
Uh,
I
but
can't get past that.
yeah, they already didn't like each other. So,
I will say, just to your point about the elders bringing the family together, I like how they showed the like child's role in that. Because I think a lot of times people think, oh, well, the adults are the mature ones. But a lot of times a child can lead the way. And I think in real families, they miss that. And so I love that it was portrayed in the film like, hey, sometimes just the innocence of a child and, the pureness of their heart can lead the family to coming back together. So yeah, I like that too. Uh,
yeah.
favorite scenes?
Oh, favorite scenes. I don't know. Okay, so I think a top one for me
Uh-huh.
was when Terry, and I believe the husband's name is Miles.
Yes,
Okay,
Miles.
when they're
Definitely.
sitting down having dinner, I think this is after Big Mama has had her stroke.
Yeah.
Terry comes in from work, he's cooking, and they kind of get into this tiff about the money and how took like $5,000 out of the account. But what makes that scene for me was after he gets up and leaves, and then Faith comes in,
Hmm.
half dressed, and the way that Terry like looks back at her, I think they were talking about like what her plan was or how long she was supposed to be there. The way she looked her up and down, it just every time I see that scene, it takes me out. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's one of my favorite ones.
Okay. My favorite scene is, it probably shouldn't be my favorite scene, but when Terry is trying to cut Miles with the knife at the
I was gonna say that scene, but I feel like I was like, I feel like she's gonna say that, so I'm gonna say a different one.
Yeah, so that was my favorite. I mean, the acting was amazing. The way that they all looked so surprised, like they were actually in the moment. I absolutely loved it. Yeah, so that had to have been one of my favorite scenes. And then I think the second one would be at Nia Long's wedding. I don't
Oh,
know none of these characters, but when he was dancing with the other woman and they told her, but by the time she came out, Big Mama had come in and was the one dancing with him. I liked that scene. So
a bit unrealistic that he would be that bold.
at
The
their
the character,
wedding with
yeah,
her
the character you're
family,
talking about is Bird. That's Nia
Bird.
Long's character.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Child, I listen. I have forgotten all of their names.
Yeah, it's
That
that one's
series.
older than Love and Basketball. I think it came out in the 90s.
I feel like 98 or something like that is when that one came out.
Yeah. So for me, what makes this I guess a portion of this movie that's problematic
Hmm.
is, so you mentioned earlier this encouragement from the elders to, stay together, give people chances, room for
Hmm.
growth. But I put that was a little bit problematic in the movie.
Ooh.
The whole dynamic between Faith, Big Mama, Faith kind of being this wild card character
Yeah.
of a person. We found out later in the movie some of the stuff Terry says that she's done in the past,
Yeah.
that has like put the family in a bad situation, or Big Mama. And so, as we know, Faith is the person that ends up sleeping with Terry's husband, which was
Mhm.
definitely his fault. But I put that it's problematic because I understand that you should give people second chances and that you're family. But I think when people show you who they are, I do think that like boundaries should be in place that are appropriate,
Mhm.
to protect the people even within the family. So yeah, for me, Big Mama having this, I guess, limitless love
Yeah.
for Faith and understanding, I get, but at the same time, it puts Terry in a position where she's kind of forced to take her in,
Yeah.
and then the subsequent chain of events happen.
Mm.
So for me that's a bit problematic because I think at a certain point you should put up more boundaries than that. And it's
Yeah.
also almost kind of glorified at the end where it's like, but we're still family and we still
Mm.
all need to come together. And it's like, yes, we're still family, but you still do need healthy boundaries based off of people's behavior. So,
Yeah. I get that for sure. I think one of the things that makes it problematic for me is just everything surrounding Terry as a character. So
mm,
I feel like justice for Terry at this point because she was penalized for being successful. And I think a bit of that came from like Big Mama and
mm-hmm,
it being acceptable that Terry's the one to come to everybody's aid. And I'm like, who was sticking up for Terry? Like she got her man taken and and now the family's just accepting that this is Maxine's man, like she got that taken away from her. And then maybe to your point about boundaries, like I wish there had been boundaries respected when it came to Terry. Now, I think in her marriage, I don't know, maybe that's where she could have done something differently, but I would have to sit and really think about that because I am such an advocate of people following their dreams and I think maybe if she would have been slightly more supportive. I think everything she said was valid, but I do think like maybe some support. And I think he also could have given her a lot more time. Like, if you're thinking about leaving a stable position to do something that's not stable, and you've probably been thinking about it for some time, you need to give your partner time to think about it and time to get on board with it. And so, I think those dynamics were interesting. But other than that, I think justice for Terry because why was she the one who everybody had to come to fix their problems? And then if she didn't want to get involved, she still had to because then she would seem like the bad guy. So I think
mm-hmm,
she's like, they say like first daughters deserve an award.
mm-hmm.
That's literally Terry's character.
Yeah. And then I do think that there was this expectation of, okay, well, when you do help, keep your mouth shut about it.
Right.
Now, there were a few scenes where she was doing the most, but
Yeah.
I think that was a bit of her humbling people into being, I guess, gracious for the assistance that she did provide. I don't know, her character just seemed stressed the entire time. I
Yeah.
also wonder too if maybe she put out this energy of independence or I'm strong and I got it, that like over time she kind of played into that role, but it seems like she never even had a choice.
Right, like it was placed on her almost.
So
That's
she's like, I'm gonna embrace it since I'm here now.
yeah, and honestly, even like her being strong, I think maybe it wasn't even strength, it was her being like hardened. After so many of those things happen, you you become you fall victim to the circumstances, like you
Mm-hmm.
can only respond in certain ways because you've been so hurt, and it seems like nobody was hearing her. Like when it came to Big Mama and Maxine was like, "Oh yeah, so we figured you would pay it out and then we would." It's like, "What? Like how you know I got it? How do you know I want to, like give towards this, or at least let me offer it. Don't y'all get together and be like, "Oh, well, she got it." Like don't do that.
Yeah,
So,
and
yeah, it was
that
funny.
was the scene that triggered her. I
Yeah.
think when they were in the kitchen and they were like, "Oh yeah, you'll just pay it and then we'll pay you back."
Yeah.
Yeah, the nerve.
She said, "F the family." You know what the family did? I brought the family to my house. The family slept with my husband. Like, okay, Terry girl.
Yeah, actually the whole dynamic with like Faith and the scene where she like shows up to one of Miles's
Inappropriate.
performances,
Yes.
and it made me think about, was it Kira Sheard, and she was like, nobody stays at my house.
We'll get them a hotel at the down the street.
This is exactly why. And the way she kept calling him cousin, cousin, that was another one of my favorite scenes, mainly because it just got under my skin how many times she kept calling him cousin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she was definitely, well, of course, he was the one who had a marriage to protect, but really that's your family. So why would you even, yeah, she was flirting with it. Faith wouldn't have been allowed around, or around my people.
So, one other thing that I want to bring up before we move on is
Hmm.
the dynamic of Bird and Lim's relationship, and
Okay.
how, he's fresh out of prison and he's struggling to keep a job. His perception of her is that she's expects a lot and she has her designer labels or whatever. She's
Hmm.
successful. She just started her own shop. And so she takes on the position of, hey, I'm going to try to help him find
Yes.
a job. And then at the end, I think it was Maxine. They're like in the hallway. I think they're like meeting up to have lunch or breakfast with Terry.
Mhm.
And she's like, oh, you got to let a man be a man. You can't get in his way. What do you think of her advice with that whole thing?
Okay. So I don't necessarily think it is, oh, you gotta let a man be a man, even though that's what she said. I agree with it in so far as like I don't think I think each person should have some wiggle room to like figure things out themselves. And I think that was maybe good advice for Bird because she went and put herself in the business and got her ex to hire, her husband. It's like, what? Are y'all not even thinking? Like, what makes you think that is okay?
And didn't even tell him.
And didn't even tell him. Like, to be fair, he didn't tell her he had lost his job initially, which again comes from bad advice because
That
Maxine.
Maxine's husband. See, you got to be careful who you take advice from because it was her husband who told him not to say anything.
And now she's saying, "Oh, you can't get in a man's way." But yeah, it's advice that she should have taken. But I do like to be careful with making that a gendered thing because I do think, based on people's personalities, some people want that space to figure it out themselves. Like I remember at my first job, one of my coworkers was like he kept trying to help me do stuff, and I was like,
Mhm.
"No, if you give me 2 seconds, I got it." And he was like, wow, you really don't like people helping you. I'm like, that's not even what it is. But as soon as I go to start doing something, here you come and you're not giving me the space. So I think it's just like based on people's personality. sometimes don't get in the way. And
Mm.
she definitely should not have, because it gave that other man the upper hand over her husband. And look at how that turned out. Not
And
a
of all the men to go for help from.
girl, hire him in your shot. Well, I mean, she couldn't have because ego and, appearance and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
anywhere else.
Jeez.
Yeah. Okay. Do we want to do the best man next? Because especially, and I know you haven't seen it yet, so we won't be doing spoilers.
Okay.
But especially with the final chapters coming out on Peacock, I think this movie deserves to be looked at as far as it being problematic. The first movie. Let's just keep it at the first movie. We don't even have to go farther than that.
Yeah. So, okay, I'll start with a scene or two that I like in this movie. For
Okay.
me, it's the card table scene where like the air was so thick
Yeah.
you could cut it. The acting in that scene was just amazing. And there's so many problematic things in just like that 3 to 4 minute window. But yeah,
Yeah.
the card table scene where I think it's Terrence Howard's character Quentin, is that his name?
Yeah,
Where
it
he's
is.
like basically egging on Lance. So yeah, that scene. And I'll talk a little bit later why there's a lot of stuff in there that's problematic. And then the altar scene where like
Mhm.
Morris Chestnut is like crying through his vows, but it's not for the reason
Oh, so
she
that's your
did.
problematic one?
No, no, no. Well, no, I'm just talking about scenes that I like.
Oh, okay, okay, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah. These are just scenes that I like. The card table scenes I have problems with.
okay.
But the altar scene where he's all choked up and she's just looking so angelic in his work.
Okay. I
Oh man,
know.
that yeah, he needs an award for that scene.
I will say that's one of the things I love about this movie, because he got a taste of his own medicine. Like, you have been running around this entire your entire college career. She does this once and now you're trying to flip out over her. Like, I I like this movie because he was not treating her right and really got a taste of his own medicine. Now, I don't. I want to go into what's problematic because there's so much, but I'm gonna stop there and say another one of my favorite scenes had to have been with Harper and Jordan when the Stevie Wonder record starts to scratch. That's like a classic scene that I think everybody remembers and loves and knows. So that's one of my favorites. And then of course the candy scene at the
Oh
very
yeah.
end, like with the electric slide, because
Yeah.
that obviously changed what the electric slide looked like. When a movie has that much
Hmm.
impact on the culture, that people do the electric slide to Candy, that's a big deal. Now we do it to Beyonce,
Yeah.
Before I Let Go, but for years we're
Back
doing
then,
it to
yeah.
Candy.
I also think too, just having a black movie centered around a wedding, I think we
Mhm.
love it as well because we don't see a whole lot of these types of events, I feel like, in black TV shows and media. So
Mm,
to have a movie like solely dedicated, even though
yeah.
it has a lot of things with it, I think just it being centered around a wedding, I
Yeah, I
think
hadn't thought of
people
that.
like it. Yeah. And this, the music is just, yeah.
The music, the acting, listen, so I've seen the final chapters, and if I can just say, whoever did this casting deserves every single award that is out there, because still these people are acting their behinds off. They're in their 50s now. And when I tell you the acting from this movie, from the first movie to the Best Man Holiday to the final chapters, is just superb. The cast is absolutely stunning, like such a
Hmm.
beautiful cast. Thank God that Tay Diggs got his hairline together from the first movie to now, but still, like, just beautiful people all together. um
Yeah.
do we want to
Let's
go into
let's
what's
jump
problem?
into what's problematic because Samaria can't wait. You go off, girl.
Okay, the fact that there's a wedding in the first place, I mean, why? I get that they're young and they feel like they're in love and all of that, but the fact that there was even a wedding, knowing how he behaved in college, I think was insane to me. And then I guess, of course, with the Best Man Holidays, he did go on to be a faithful husband, but in real life,
It would
is
have
that
been
really
over. Yeah.
very unrealistic? Very unrealistic. So that's number one. I'll let you go because I can go down the list of problems.
So I'm gonna circle back to the card table scene. So one of the things that's problematic for me, and it's seen throughout the theme of the movie, but
Mhm.
I'm focusing on this scene,
Okay.
just because the acting is so good in that part. It's just this like fixation on only her being with him. I just was not here for that. And you touched on it in that, like, there's this double standard of like he could be out here wilding out.
With
But
everybody.
it was problematic because it felt like his ego and obsession with her
Yes.
was that she was so faithful and she had only been with him. So for me, that's just problematic because obviously the double standard. But it's like, okay, well, what's your interest in this marriage and her beyond that?
Yes. You being the
Like
only
her loyalty that you think is there. Obviously, we all want loyalty, but I think his was just extremely focused
one.
on that. And then another thing from that scene um, is I think it's Quentin's character where he's like, basically, marriage, monogamy isn't for me. I think Lance goes on to say, like, well, marriage is the only thing that can keep me faithful or something.
Yeah.
Clearly, that's problematic. But also just the company you keep, because I don't understand why you would think it's okay to have someone in your inner circle like that
Yeah.
who has such an opposing view. And it kind of, I understand that y'all were in college together and y'all are moving on to the next phase,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I think this is another reason why like people have the mindset of like married people kind of hang around other married people, just because this idea of that, the friends can influence behavior even though you're accountable for your own actions.
Hmm.
But I don't know. I had a problem with it.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm gonna take us back a little bit because
Okay.
another beautiful scene was the moment with Candace, Regina Hall's character, and
Okay.
Mert
Oh.
when she was like, "Listen, I just do this, for money. I'm actually like taking my studies very seriously." And he does this like Audre Lorde quote, and she recognizes it. I thought that was a really beautiful
Hmm.
beautiful moment. Like, y'all better bond over Audre Lorde. So I thought that was really nice because it shows us don't judge a book by its cover. Like, obviously, this is what she's doing, but she has serious ambitions, and even if she didn't, but I'm just saying, like, don't judge, based off of what you see somebody doing. You never know the depth behind them. So,
Yeah.
okay, now that I got that out of the way, um, so Robin, and I understand, like, she's, I don't want to say like a little bit of a hippie, but like just free spirited. This man proposed to this woman, no ring, at somebody
No,
else's wedding.
not one ring.
And then he like makes this big scene about it. And she says yes. I'm like, girl, after what he had done the day before or the night before or whenever, now all of a sudden within less than 24 hours you're very serious and you want to like propose to this woman. So I don't like that because it seems very not thought through. Like she was
Mm-mm.
just that Bruno Mars song, something about let's get married. Like what else are we gonna do?
Oh yeah,
Uh
yeah.
you were looking for something dumb to do. I think I want to marry you. That's the vibe it gave me. That right there. Or a jagged edge, meet me at the altar in your white dress. We ain't getting no younger. Like those are the vibes that
Yeah.
that scene was giving me for
The
sure.
scraps. Because he also
Exactly.
had a black eye. Like what?
Yeah. And I'm glad that they did the holiday and the final chapter so that we could just see the progression of these characters because you don't get to see it like Love and Basketball like we talked about they start off really as kids and then go into adulthood, but with these characters we don't see it. And I think the Best Man Holiday and then the final chapters really do a good job of showing the progression of these people.
Yeah. Also, just like the entire premise of the movie of like this secret being inside of a book.
Yeah.
And I think it was the scene where Jordan is like getting all ready to have a hot night. And like he
Yeah.
shows up and with the black eye, and she's upset, but he still isn't taking accountability
No.
for the fact that one, you did it, and then two, you actually put it in a book. He's still blaming her. It's so many things.
It's so many things. Let me think what else. Of course, how Melissa D'Souza's character, oh, the name is
Mm.
escaping me right now, but of course, how she treated Merch. That was extremely problematic. I like that it was kind of a contrast between, Lance and Mia, like how he was dogging her the entire time. And then we
Mhm.
have like a woman who's in the power position. So that was an interesting dynamic, but I do think it was very problematic, the way that their relationship was. And then, yeah, I think Robin being in that room with Jordan and Mia, and then like almost coming to the rescue and trying to make sure, like fixing things and putting herself to the side, which is a theme that they explore later on in the like final chapters. But yeah, it just all struck me as wrong. Like you're in the room with two women who, one, your, I guess, boyfriend slept with, the other one he was trying to sleep with last night, and now you're here being the good Samaritan. I don't know, it just didn't sit well with me.
I'll ask you this. So, do you think one of the reasons why people love this movie
Mhm.
is that, I guess, with the main characters, Mia and and
Lance.
Lance, how they do end up getting married, right?
Yeah.
But I think in real life, there's this, I don't know, way of thinking that men can never get over cheating and move forward,
Yeah.
and that women can just kind of see past a lot of things. So, do
Mhm.
you think that the movie taking the course that it did, where she messed around on him or whatever,
Mhm.
and he was able to forgive her, so she
Yeah.
kind of, I don't want to say got away with it, but he kind of ended up having egg on his face in the end. Do you think that that whole dynamic is why people are drawn to the movie? Is that she kind of got, I don't want to say the final laugh,
Yeah.
but in real life, we see it the opposite way playing out.
Yeah. I think people like this movie honestly because it's juicy and the acting is really good,
Oh, yeah.
I think. But I definitely think that sweetens the deal that he had to like swallow, like get a taste of his own medicine. And I think that definitely adds to the juiciness of this. And yeah, maybe it goes into the whole, oh, people can make mistakes and still recover from it. But I think that in and of itself is problematic. And I want us to be freed from that trope. I do. Like, no, if they mess up, it's okay to not ever be in their presence, because I think when you see it so many times, it seems like that's what should be normalized or what is normal. And it shouldn't be normalized. It is not normal. If they play you like that, it's okay to chunk up the deuces and be out.
Yeah. No, you don't have to have any more fight in you.
Yeah, like for what reason? What was
Yeah.
the reason? But yeah, we could honestly talk about more movies and have a part two. Let us know on Instagram in our DMs, or if you're watching on YouTube in the comments, because we did have a few other like movies and shows to talk about. So let us know if you guys would enjoy a part two, and we'll definitely do that. But we're gonna go into our last segment, which is Girl What's Good.
Yeah, where we talk about something we've been loving for the past couple of weeks. It could be a book, a product, a store, anything that we've been loving. So, Samaria, what's been good with you?
Okay, so mine is a show, which it almost always is, but it's on Netflix. It's called Physical 100. I believe
Mm.
it is based in South Korea. And it's where like 100 strong people from different backgrounds. So some of them are MMA fighters, some of them are dancers, some of them are other types of athletes, some of them just do like bodybuilding and stuff like that. Some of them are in the military, different backgrounds, and 100 of them come and pretty much do like a Squid Games type thing, where eventually there's going to be a winner.
Mm.
And I enjoy that because I love competition shows, and I think it's really good because it's like Squid Games, which was entertaining for most people to watch, except they're just getting sent home. They're not dying. So yeah, that's what I've been enjoying for the last several weeks. So that's my what.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what's been good with me is I'm back in Zumba, y'all. So what y'all may not know is that I faithfully went to Zumba for like 5 or 6 years before the pandemic. And I actually used to teach. Samaria did as well.
Yeah.
But yes, I used to teach for years. And with the pandemic and being pregnant, I stopped going. And I just started back maybe like a month ago. So
Mhm.
yeah, this is my first time being back in like a group fitness class, and I've been absolutely loving it. I mentioned last year that I subscribed to ifyoucanmove.com, which is Kira Lachey's online fitness gym.
Yeah.
But I was really craving going back in person, and
Mhm.
I've been absolutely loving it. I've been able to go to 2 classes a week. And I don't know, like, I think having the break was a good thing because, for doing it for so long, it's like, oh, okay, kind of can get a bit monotonous, but
Mhm.
I'm actually like excited to be back in
That's
it.
good.
So, yeah, that's what's been good with me.
Nice. All right. Well, listen, thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of the Girlfriends and Goals podcast. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Girlfriends and Goals podcast to share your thoughts on this topic. And if you haven't subscribed already, please go ahead and do that now. And don't forget to rate, review, and share. Until next time, bye.
Bye.